Dance History. The script from my documentary A Century of Contemporary Dance in Greece, New Greek Television, 2001. In the Shadow of Greek Myths. Modern dance in Greece seems to be the outcome of the influences from the two prominent poles of the second decade of the 20th century, Germany and the US. The new dance flourished before and during the era between the two world wars in these two centers. The impact of Germany was the educational method used to approach movement, eurythmics, according to the Émile Jacques Dalcroze system. From the US came the abandoned vision of Isadora Duncan on Hellenism. These two directions functioned, the first as method, and the second as purpose in shaping and influencing choreographic production in Greece for a very long time. The reactivation and reinterpretation of the vision of Isadora Duncan's first creative period came into being due to the efforts of another American, the first wife of the poet Angelos Cyclianos, Eva Palmer. Duncan's ideas about the choric parts of the ancient drama and their singing, which she based on Byzantine music, developed into a new form and durability in the work of Eva Palmer. The romantic Philhellenism of Eva Palmer Cyclianos, eliminated from the thinking and experience of Duncan's legacy and experiments its most central point, the avoidance of any tendency to revive what was widely considered as ancient Greek dance. On the contrary, Eva Palmer focused precisely on that. Eurythmics and the methodology of the Central European tradition contributed significantly to the search of descendants for a convincing kinesiologic form, away from any precise or naive representation of movement as it was preserved in vases and friezes. Furthermore, Palmer's effort revolved around the search for a way to connect the origins of the Greek nation and what was held as its true dance form. This research had at its core the incorporation, or rather the subordination of the art of dance to the principles of Hellenism. The Hellenic identity, which endorsed the usefulness of the art of dance, could be said to comprise several elements that function as models for verifying this art form as national. Anorchesis. The theatrical dance started its course in Greece dynamically, despite the country lacking the necessary infrastructure or any preparatory steps to accept it, except for the distant memory of Isadora Duncan's visits. The Hellenocentric, almost Philhellenic thinking of the bourgeoisie of that era helped the progressive, possibly subversive modern dance to be transferred to this country instead of ballet. Modern dance proved to be a suitable genre to become the ideological tool of those who searched for the true Greek identity not only through the continuation of the Philhellenic vision mostly of the Germans but also the American artists of the late 19th and early 20th century. However, the search for a Hellenic identity resulted in an ideal that sat oddly with the political and social reality of the era between the two world wars. Rhythm and repetition as elements of the art as ritual were, on the one hand, connected to the theatrical tradition, thus subordinating dance to the theater and, on the other, to the educating and disciplining of the body. Physical education and discipline became part of the material overall, which helped to consolidate authoritarian practices in most of the European countries in the 30s. This was particularly significant in light of many countries being swept by dictatorial regimes' rule. To a certain extent, dance and the body sided by them. The pioneers of modern dance in Greece experienced disillusionment following the dead end of past practices. Therefore, their interests were directed towards more realistic targets as the years passed. Of the pupils of Kola Pratsika, some broke away, like Rala, and others followed their personal path of study and experimentation with ancient drama, like Maria or Zsuzsa Nicoloudi. Pratsika herself continued to put an enormous amount of emphasis upon dance education not only throughout the years of the School of Eurythmics and Gymnastics which bore her name, but also later, in the early 70s, when her school became the State School of the Art of Orchesis. Apart from the subject matter and the music, the form was the third essential element of theatrical dance, influenced by the revivalist, nostalgic spirit of the time. However, the form was also subjugated to the effort to revive the movement of the chorus of the ancient drama, a fact that had further reverberations. From Europe to America, the form under which dance theater flourished in Greece was the one that comprised all three elements of orchesis, considered to be the ideal: speech, music, and movement. The choreographic production in Greece, until the mid-70s, was based upon the study of ancient drama through the descendants of Kola Pratsika. one could say that the various artistic currents always reached Greece somewhat belatedly. This concerns as much the ideas of Isadora Duncan, the expressionist dance of Mary Wigman, and the American choreographer, Martha Graham. Indeed, any connection to Graham's work, as well as the inspiration by her choreographies, was once more based on the need to produce Greek dance works. With her thematic appropriation of the Greek myths, Graham offered a new channel for the pursuit and expression of the true Greek Hellenic identity, which continued to preoccupy Kola Pratsika's students in post-war Greece. Rala Manu remained faithful to the dominant tradition of the pursuit of Greek Hellenic identity and the use and promotion of elements and images of Greece. However, she ceased to seek inspiration exclusively in ancient Greece and turned to the second part of Palmer's vision, which referred to folk art and tradition. Even when Manu's themes were taken from ancient Greece, her work seemed more like a retrospection, in which the historical era was literally recreated in order to provide a kind of backdrop, while her preferred topics were repeatedly staged: the female seductiveness, love, rivalry, hatred. Manu's persistence in the search for the Greek identity, the old-fashioned presentation of the female characters, the lack of any renewal of her movement vocabulary, which contained helter-skelter elements of classical and modern dance, together with her literal narratives, contributed to her work quickly becoming dated. Many people deny the influence of Rala Manu's work on more recent choreographic productions of younger artists. However, one may still see reflections of that influence, even as a revitalization of style, steps, and subject matter has overtaken her. In other words, the kitsch which uses social dancing or folk dancing steps, traditional or pop music in a theatrical dance performance, was apparent in her works and is still a part of the choreographies of younger artists. Those aspects, luckily, have been subsumed nowadays in a new stylistic unity, freed from the old form which had sought to fit in the purpose of expressing the Greek identity. Rala Manu kept from the concept and work of Martha Graham whatever was necessary for her artistic survival after she left the environment of the school and the style of the performances of Kola Pratsika. In the course of her career, consciously or unconsciously, she introduced two essential innovations into the dance scene of Greece. First, she cultivated an idea of dance as an independent art form, which bore little connection to the ancient drama. In this way, and despite any other critique of her work, she can be considered the first choreographer in this country, according to the model of the rest of Europe and America. Second, and as a consequence of the professional way of handling her troupe, the Greek core drama, she introduced the obligatory teaching of her dancers a known dance technique, namely that of Graham, in order for them to acquire the necessary skills to perform. Dance in Greece, with Rala Manu, became a truly independent art form, on a professional level, ready to be presented to a much wider audience. Rupture with the past. The choreographers who were involved with the dance theater from the mid-80s onwards needed to differentiate themselves from what artists of the previous generations had been doing. Initially, the odd world of Pina Bausch's dance theater offered a way of escaping older forms. However, the gloomy, metaphorical, almost impenetrable irony of the works of the German choreographer had very little in common with what was on the agenda of the Greek choreographers, as well as with their tradition. Pop versions of dance theater, inclining more towards satire and provocation, seemed to attract the younger choreographers' interest, who, furthermore, continued to be fascinated with the deconstruction of the linear narrative offered by the German Tanztheater. While significant changes were taking place in the form of the dance theater in Greece, new propositions, transformations of the traditional notions of the authentic Greek kind of the dance as orchesis continued to appear, albeit with decreasing frequency. Those choreographic projects were being developed by artists whose primary education was first theatrical and then in dance. In so doing, they relied either on folk culture or the revival of the notion of dance as a short interlude, a view that reflected the influence of the commedia dell'arte on theatrical studies. Movement for movement's sake, improvisation. Today in Greece there exist almost 50 contemporary dance groups. Almost half of them are subsidized by the Ministry of Culture. It is becoming apparent that there is a constant increase in the number of people who attend dance performances. Nonetheless, the domain of the art of dance remains unreconstructed, and many wonder what is happening with dance in Greece today. Experimental performances always give rise to various reactions and divide critics and audiences in their views. depending upon the social permissiveness, education, and familiarity with whatever may be considered novel back in time, the tolerance towards what is seen as experimental varies. So does the range of comments and reactions to it. In the past few years, choreographers have increasingly tended to produce abstract works in which movement creates meaning or helps to create meaning. This influences or signals a new relationship between the artist, the work of art, and the audience. The latter is asked to watch the performance without the safety net of what has always been the traditional unraveling of a spectacle. One of the hottest issues concerning contemporary dance performances in Greece is the use or not of stage improvisation mixed in with other more structured parts of the performance. The debate encompasses different points of view, which refer, first to the relationship between audience and spectacle and second, the diverse attitudes towards spectacle itself, that is, on the one hand, a way of thinking that requires a definition of dance, performance, and art in order to safeguard what is acknowledged as dance performance, believing that one must only ever reproduce fixed forms of spectacle. At the same time, the other way of thinking accepts the notion that much more is involved in performance and art. In this way, a system that attempts a constant reproduction of an ideal model of performance is pointless. The flourishing of dance? The teaching of a wide range of contemporary dance techniques, the emphasis upon a better education, the state subsidies, and an increasingly tolerant Greek society have freed younger generations of artists who, at the beginning of the 90s, gave a new impetus to the art of dance. Choreographers of this generation exposed the body to diverse techniques, music or sound accompaniment, speed, virtuosity, style, and a new provocative subject matter, which had little to do with the past of contemporary dance in Greece.